Hello and welcome to the Cat and Sam show. I'm here with Sam, my bestie. How you doing there? Hey,
I'm good. I'm good, thank you. You see, I've got a little more decoration. Um,
too. I love.
love the love posters. They were from the event in Nottingham that we held, that first one, of which hopefully I had some good conversations today about some more happening nationally, um, and hopefully some businesses will get involved because I do think that they are. Spoke to a fantastic organisation called Employers Initiative Against Domestic Abuse, and it's here in the UK.
Nice. I like the
Yeah,
title.
and they're fantastic. They're quite a relatively new organisation, but they're really stepping up and stepping in. I think to areas where we've got politicians, we've got people all talking the talk, but I think businesses really do have, and employers, not just businesses, but employers, really do have a role to play. But that they get on and do it. We're so
Right.
hampered sometimes by the systems, the politics of the government here. They'd promised £1 million, and it's been worked for, but really hard for by Women's Aid and other organisations and supporters as an emergency flea fund. And the government had announced after the last big case that this was going to be happening, and then they've just changed their minds. They're not going to do
Right.
it anymore. And you just think, what?
You want to talk about leadership today? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of message does that send? You know?
Let's certainly not leadership.
No, it's not leadership. So there's all of this rhetoric, there's all of this talk, and then their actions show something completely different. And then at the same time, you've got, if we're talking about leadership, and I know not everybody agrees, but the Prime Minister of New Zealand, is it Jacinda?
I'm not sure who it is.
Well, I think a lot of what she's done has been fantastic, but she's stepping down. Let me just check. Jacinda Ardern, yeah, Ardern. But it was interesting. The new leader's stepping in, and he's male, and there aren't any questions about how he's going to juggle office and fatherhood. What he's wearing, is he wearing a fashion label? And yeah, there's just been a bit of a
So
day of
true.
that. There's just been a bit of a day of you get really fed up with people in leadership who just don't
They don't get
give
it.
a damn.
And I shouldn't say they don't get it. They don't want to get it.
No. How does it work? How is it? What's happening in the States in that arena?
Well, we got the political season coming up, and it'll be interesting because to me it's the same stuff. DV isn't even on the table. They talk more about you know we had abortions taken off
Yeah.
the list, and so there was a big fight on both sides for about that, and there's a lot of rhetoric that goes around where one party gets stuck on something and then the other party is stuck on something else, and it's just trying to drive something that's really not there. uh, in my opinion, we need leadership. People that aren't looking for a job the next week or the next session, I should say. They get a job and they hold on to it for 2 years, and then they not much is done. And then the next 2 years, they're waiting for that. And then there's a lot of political stance of like where you go, what you do. And just not a lot gets done that I see. I put my power where I can.
Yeah. And a lot of,
I think
certainly in political, some of these systems and institutions, going back to the police, how we were talking before, they're about power and control, about controlling people rather than communicating and finding compromise. I think as human beings, generally, we will follow a leader that is fair, that is honest, that is straightforward, across the board,
I agree.
We just don't have anybody that's those things, and there's nothing I'd love more than to see where the new leaders are coming. Actually, that's supposed to be what 2023 is about. With leadership, yes. Oh, and I meant to say Happy New Year, Happy Chinese New Year, because I read a thing that this year, 2023, in Chinese horoscopes, it's about a new style of leadership and new leaders stepping up with a different way of doing it to what's gone before. And I have to say, I think the world is very ready for that. So I'm quite looking forward to it. Some new, young, fresh ideas.
I am too,
and where people matter.
Right. I mean, it's like you were saying before, if you're going to do all the things that happen to bring forth change and you don't have some leadership helping to facilitate that, then, providing lip service is, as a person in the DV community, I think, well, go ahead and gaslight us, because we understand that, because that's what's being done. Is they're telling you one thing but doing another.
Absolutely, and it definitely feels like that. And you end up with, so for instance, with the officers in the police who are fighting for this and do want change, they end up really demoralised, as well as the public who are really demoralised and just fed up with the whole thing. It has to come from leadership. It cannot come from anywhere else. And whatever leadership sets the bar at is what it will be. And leadership around it, both in the States and here, no matter what it looks like on the tin, are not doing what is actually really within their power to do.
And I think we have to start somewhere. And I think, a lot of, like the corporations and talking with them, and in leadership within each government position and talking with them. And the people need to stand up and say enough's enough. And it comes down to, I always go back to it because I really think it's really key is how can society enact any change in this arena if we deny that it's even going on or what it really is, which is the beauty of your movie, in that you put words to what's going on, so that people can understand. Because you can't understand if you are refusing to look, like that one saying, it'll never happen to me, and then when it happens to you, you're like, happened to me.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it's, and it does. And we're all guilty of it to a certain degree. But these are people who it's their jobs. They are there to
Right.
safeguard. They are there to protect, and not just the police. I'm talking about in government as well. The Home Office.
Well,
We are paying their wages to do a job. So them stopping abuse is not a charitable act, but they seem to view it as such. It's like, oh, we're doing you a favor. We're doing you a favor. This is an absolute fundamental, basic human right across the board for everybody. And
right.
I think,
I think it has a lot to do with just giving what, putting a Band-Aid on it and saying, okay, there, we've taken care of that. It's like, no, there's a bigger problem. It's not just that. It makes me kind of, I'm going to go off the topic just a little bit, but it makes me kind of think of language in using he in expressing ourselves. Women have had to deal with this forever in language. If it's not he or she, it's he. Now we've come into saying, like, she said this. Then we get men that are like, well, you're not using enough he when describing something. You know what I'm saying? So, and then we have they and them, which is inclusive of everyone, right?
yeah.
But there's pushback because people want to have their voices heard, however it is that they identify with, which I can understand. At the same time, it's like you said, if you have a good leader, you follow them anywhere.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking about the whole. They're thinking about everyone. They're including everyone to come to that table and let's fix some things. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here is bring everybody to the table and say, let's try to figure this out. We've got psychologists and filmmakers and counselors and doctors and different people coming on that know in their communities that it's not working, because it doesn't work in the community as a whole, right?
Yeah. It's not working. So we need to look at coming things from a different angle. Like there's various different movements like Pivot to the Perpetrator, and like you say about the film, part of hopefully what we wanted to do with the film was just turn the perspective a little bit. But when you have people in leadership who are deliberately shutting down opportunities for discussion, for forward movement, then you have to question that leadership. But we do have a problem in this country in that we have a prime minister at the moment who twice, whilst in office, has broken the law and been fined for it. When did we get to a situation when our leadership, we've got another with his tax, whilst Chancellor made a mistake about how much, what percentage of the company he owned with his father, to the tune of like £3 million. It wasn't a few quid. But he was in office. He said he made a mistake on his own tax thing. Well, that's Chancellors shouldn't be making mistakes in their tax about knowing how much they own of their own company. But it's only just been brought out. He's been fined and he's allowed to stay in office. We've really got a situation at the moment where there is no accountability.
We have the same thing, in media and the way that media describes situations in vying for whatever it is that they're trying to drive more people reading their papers or watching their news or You know what I'm saying? It's multifaceted, but there's things that happen that if it was the regular person, would be in jail or fined, right?
Yeah.
And
and the likelihood of them
I think this has gone on for decades, though.
No, it has, but it's getting so blatant now that literally they'll just say, "Yeah, well, I'll take the caution." We've tripped into an area. It doesn't matter what flavour you are, red, blue, green, yellow, whatever. But when you have people who are in public office, remember this is public office,
right,
earning a lot of money. They are public servants. And, we talk about the behaviour of the young men, young women, and why aren't they respectful, this, that, and the other. Well, when they've got their leaderships, the leaders of the country breaking the law and just able to say, I made an error of judgment. That's all they say. I made an error of judgment. Well, if you're making that many errors of judgment in terms of breaking the law, then you shouldn't be in office. And a lot of people with Jacinda Ardern have said because she stepped down because she's been doing it for 5 years, she's on burnout, she wants to do other things, and she feels that she can't bring what she believes the job needs in terms of capacity and full focus, so she stepped down. Now, whether that's true or not, but leadership is about knowing when to step away for the greater good, as well as hanging on. And there's an arrogance and there's a real arrogance and
I would agree. I mean,
smugness around it all.
Right, but at the same time, I just feel like they've been getting away with it for a long time. It wasn't out in the light more than it is in the light. We just didn't know. A lot of things weren't told. You can find out so much on the internet, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
this is
right.
This is
if you're looking for it.
This is in the fabric of this is, woven into the fabric of our institutions and systems, certainly politically.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that it shouldn't change. I'm just saying it needs to change, obviously. And everyone needs to stand up and, say
enough's enough.
Deserve better. Right.
We need better leadership across the board.
It's like going down in leadership. It's like when you have a judge and they have people across from them and this person's been brought up to charge for domestic violence and you think, oh, well, let's give 50-50 custody to this person who has broken the law regarding the care of minors. Like, that makes a lot of sense.
No, precisely.
It comes down to leadership in those arenas where people, I don't know.
And it's accountability, and it does come down to accountability, and that is down to us to hold these people accountable and say no more. You can't keep putting children with people who have abused, and what kind of message does that send to the child? We've talked about this before.
Right. I mean, your analogy of that is great. The whole thing of how can you, I'm looking for a word for if my neighbor was abusive to my kid in a very assaultive way, I could go after them in a legal stance. But the minute I start to go after them in a legal sense, if I'm in a divorce action or a custody agreement, then, we have to give equal, time to each party.
Yeah. No.
It makes no sense.
No, again.
Absolutely makes no sense.
No, again, it's that lack of accountability, and it's that lack of... They gave up their rights the moment they started abusing their children, and abusing the other parent by proxy is abusing the child, and it is not possible for them to be separated. So you can't hang on to your rights as a parent when you parent criminally. The child's rights have to supersede that.
Right, and I absolutely agree with that, and I do understand, narcissism being on a spectrum where there's a possibility that somebody could maybe not realize from their own upbringing and change something, but that would, it's measurable. And at the same time, right? I mean, where's the logic in... There's just no logic in any of it, except for we're just doing the same thing that we've always done, and people should just go, okay, it's always been done this way, so we'll just do it this way.
No, it's time for change. It's new year,
right?
New start, time for change, and yeah. Don't know about you, but
I think that's why we talk.
Yeah,
that's why we talk. Is we want things. We want people to understand, and we want things to change for everybody.
And it's opening it up, because these things do hide in secrecy. And for instance, like you were just saying about the narcissism, by the time it gets to custody, a custody case or anything like that, there's been lots of conversations about behaviours and how not to behave. So if it's got to a custody, but there's very few people actively think it's fun to go to court over their children. So, by the time it's got there, if it is a narcissist, I mean, there's antisocial person, there's the whole dark triad thing, as we know. This is not the first time a conversation will have been had about their behaviour or tried to be had. So they will be aware, they will know, and they're choosing not to change that behaviour. So
exactly, and I would add to that, how can we trust systems that keep people in power in those systems, and they aren't held accountable?
Yeah.
If they're not doing their job, they would lose their job. And so, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but we got some other things we want to do. So we're going to end this conversation, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye, love.
See you later.
Hello. Thank you for watching our channel today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for any new content, and find us on Patreon and your favorite podcasts. We hope we're one of them. Bye-bye.